Joe Klecker here, morning after making the World Championship team in the 10K for Team USA. How are you feeling the morning after a nice, night of sleep, and you wake up and you got your spot for to come back here in 2 months?
Yeah, no, it definitely feels good. I mean, kind of the whole focus this year was to make this team. And so I was telling Dathan after the race, like, now I can enjoy the rest of the season because up until this point, it's just been a lot of like stress and thinking like, I got to make this team. You want to punch that ticket early. It's nice that they moved it up. So now like I have my spot on the World Champs team, and now I can just plan out the rest of the season to do the best at Worlds and just really enjoy it. I mean, I would hate to be on the sideline having, Worlds here in the U.S.
Last year, we kicked it with you after you made the team at the Olympic trials. You go on to compete in Tokyo. And then from there, like the fall season that you had was kind of disrupted, right? It was injuries, and then it rolled into the start of 2022. So I guess, can you take us through the timeline of what the last sort of 6 months have looked like for you?
Yeah. So I made the Olympic team, and I went to the Olympics, and I mean, I didn't really have any goals there. I was just like really happy to be there. And then I was a bit disappointed getting 16th, and so I had a good Prefontaine Classic, and I finished the season. But then I was just like starting to get ready for this year, and I had some big goals indoor. Like I really wanted to be in that race with Grant, going after the indoor 5K record, and so we were training like really hard. I got injured in December, and like in a way, it's a bit of a blessing. Like we were really hitting it hard, and so I think that it was good, like just to rest for. It's about like 2 weeks I wasn't running, and then about 2 or 3 weeks on the Ultra G treadmill, and so it was about a month of just like really like low key training.
Yeah.
And in the moment, you're like so antsy to get training again. You think you're missing out on everything, but all along, like our goal was to get on this team, and the goal was yesterday's race. And so, like letting go of world indoors, letting go of fast times, like it was hard, but just knowing that this was the goal, this is the most important thing of the year, and you got to be ready for it. It kind of was just like, you got to focus on it. You can't do everything, especially coming off of an injury. You need to just focus on your training.
Over the last couple of years, you've obviously made it part of like your brand, in a sense, of just how hard you work behind the scenes in training. You and Morgan, I mean, that's just been your staple since being at Colorado. So this time around, when there's this big of a setback and you know how big the stakes are in 2022, how hard are you working in that comeback process?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, I haven't been injured that much, and so I've like thought that a lot of my success has just come from being very consistent in training and just like working hard day in and day out. And so like when I was actually injured and I couldn't run, I was like, man, like I don't really know how I'm going to come off this because I just haven't been injured. And so like I raced 5K a few weeks ago and workouts were going well, but I was like, on the start line, I'm like, I could run 13 minutes. I could run 13:30. Like, I just don't know because I haven't had those injuries. And so, it was just, I mean, I needed to get into a race to get that confidence back, but certainly like knowing what I did a year ago to make the Olympics and knowing that if I can get back to that level of training, I should be good to go. But you never really know until you step on the line and race.
So let's go back to a couple weeks ago when you were at the sound running meet for the 5K. You see the fields. You notice that Jakob Ingebrigtsen's in the race. So it's going to be fast one way or another. He ends up kind of just going for the World Championship standard, but it's something that you also kind of wanted to just tick that box, getting back on a starting line and going up against competition. So what were the feelings going into the race? And as it unfolded, it was sort of like the signal is like, all right, you're back.
Yeah. No, I mean, going into that race, like I was telling Dathan, like, I want it to be a sub-13 race. I want to go after sub-13. And he was just like, no, we need to just, everything's for Worlds. Everything's getting ready for Worlds. We just need to go in there and you need to just remember how to race and remember that pain. And so going into the race, I had no expectation of time, or I didn't really care about time other than hitting the world standard. I just wanted to like remember what it was like to run in a pack, remember what it's like to cover moves, remember what it's like to, just go through the process of racing. I hadn't done it since, like 6 to 8 months or so. And so that was the focus down in San Juan. And to run 13:04, I was kind of shocked. I was like, wow, like workouts have been great, but like when I ran 13:06 a year ago, like I was on the ground, just like hardest race of my life. And this was like, I felt really good. I mean, I closed, I think in 1:57, last lap was like a 56, and it just felt like pretty good. And so I was very confident coming off that race.
So that's sub 13. Still got to be on your mind though. And like you've checked this box with the 10K. You got a couple weeks, couple possible Diamond League races. Like, could be the right situation for you to go for it.
Totally, yeah. I mean, again, checking the box of getting on the team out of the way really opens up a lot of possibilities the rest of the year and a lot of fun opportunities. And so I definitely want to find a race where I can try and go for that sub 13 and just take a stab at that. And so I think, I'm for sure doing Oslo Diamond League, and I imagine it's going to be a fast race. And so that could be the one.
So if we look at OAC's team structure for the next couple weeks, and maybe you took some lessons from the lead up to the Tokyo Olympics. So you got you focusing on the 10K, Jordy's going for the 5K with New Zealand, and then Ollie's going for the 1500 for Australia. So how does that sort of work with the 3V guys getting together in practice and for Worlds? Like, how much are you actually working together in workouts?
Yeah, so Dathan's done a very good job of he really orchestrates our workouts, and so that we overlap as much as possible. I mean, and like this time of year for Ollie, I don't know if he's been officially selected, but he's pretty confident to be on the team. And so he's just doing a lot of strength this time of year. I mean, he doesn't have to run. He already ran his Australian Championship. So this time of year, he can be putting in a lot of training. So he's been doing a lot of my 10K training, which he's been doing some pretty crazy workouts for a 1500 guy. But yeah, Dathan's that's one of his best attributes as a coach, I think, is finding ways that we can link up and help each other to get better. You'd think as a 1500 runner and a 10K runner, it's not going to match up very much, but we do a lot of stuff together. I mean, Ollie's doing 18-mile long runs, and yeah, it links up a lot.
He probably took some tips from training with Centroweights and when he was focusing on 10K. So it's just sort of I'm just passing on what I learned to the new generation.
Yeah, totally. I mean, he tells some stories about when he was training with Galen and those guys about how fast they were and closing 400s at the end of workouts, and they're running 52s and he's running 54s, 56s. Yeah. But again, that just pushes him to another level to work out with guys like Centro who are world caliber 1500 runners. It really helps, for me. I think that's been one of the best things to help my closing ability.
Yeah. So last year, I think one of the best moments of the Olympic trials was when we saw you take your victory lap and just the embrace with Dathan. That was sort of the moment that brought you to tears, brought him to tears, because when On decided to invest in starting a pro team, both of you kind of two of the big cornerstones in helping make all of this happen. And so that's making an Olympic team. I can see why the emotion can be overwhelming. Last night, I guess, can you describe the feelings after this sort of victory lap? It's it's another team that you made and you took care of business, but how does it differ when it's a world championship and an Olympic team?
Yeah, I would say the biggest difference was a year ago, making that Olympic team was totally the dream. Everyone on our team was striving to get on their Olympic teams. And now that we did that a year ago, that's kind of the bar this year, is to be on that world team. And so you don't take it for granted. I mean, to finish and make that team again, and then on top of it, winning the race, it was certainly a bit emotional, but it wasn't quite the level of being on the Olympic team. The Olympics holds a little bit more weight than the World Championships, I would say. But yeah, I mean, we've just kind of said, man, that's really the bar on this team. Ollie, George, I mean, everyone's hoping to represent their country, and whether they do or not, everyone on this team is at that level. And so, again, you don't want to be the one on the sidelines when the whole team's having a good time at Worlds or the Olympics. You want to be there with the team.
So we've made it this far without even actually breaking down the actual 10K race. So I'm curious, feelings on the starting line and that confidence level. Where was it at? Because this time around, a year later, Grant Fisher's coming in as the American record holder. You saw what he ran a couple months back in March. So, it's sort of all right, he might have a spot, but you end up making the biggest move of the race and come out with the win. So how did it play out for you?
Yeah, I mean, leading into this race, I've had waves of high confidence and waves of low confidence. Even just this weekend being here in Eugene, at times I'm I'm going to go win this race. And then at times I'm man, I don't even know if I'm going to be in the contention, because I haven't raced a 10K since Tokyo, and there's just so many unknowns. And then, on top of that, Grant sets the American record. Woody paces him for 9K of it or something. Sean goes and runs an amazing 10K. And then on top of that, you have guys like Shadrach and Emmanuel who have put together great seasons. And so you just you kind of talk yourself into it, and then you talk yourself out of it. But on the starting line, I was definitely feeling confident. I kind of was just reflecting on the work I've done. And again, reflecting on that sound running meet and just saying like, look, I'm back. I need to put this thought of an injury behind me and just realize like, you know, I'm ready to go. I'm as good as I can be right now. But then the race went off, and I was telling Dathan, like the gun went off, but the gun didn't really go off until maybe like 23 minutes into that race. And so we're just like jogging, like tempo pace, and it's just
Klecker
like,
miles, right?
I know, yeah, it was so slow. I mean, like we do our tempo runs faster than that in Boulder, and if you don't kind of stop and think about that, you know, I'm like, I should not be hurting. This is not hard at all. But you're in a race and you think, oh, this should be hard. I should be hurting. But you got to kind of snap out of it and say, no, this is a jog. Like, this is not hard. But so it was very nerve wracking. It was 20 minutes of just jostling and pushing around, and everyone, you know, people going to the front, making moves. I mean, and you're just kind of having to be attentive to everything that's happening and just thinking, how can I put myself in the best position to kick for this team? I mean, that's what it's all about. So it was a stressful 20. I would say this one was more stressful than a year ago, because a year ago it was a little bit faster. There were less players there at the bell, and I guess you couldn't chase the standard a year ago. So you're really only racing a few guys for that team. But this year it was like anyone could have gone top 3 and gone and chased that standard. So it was certainly a lot more stressful in there.
Okay, so where did the balls come in to make the move and go to the front?
So I had no intention of really going to the front, but I heard Dathan yell, I think it was maybe 900 meters to go, right after a kilometer to go. He was on that curve. He said, go to the front. And I didn't even think about it. And then all of a sudden I found myself in the front, and I was like, wow, I don't want to push this too hard too early and get, you know, swallowed up. And so then I started getting clipped from behind. But I think one thing I've learned in my career is to really just not let that affect me, the physicality of racing, and knowing that if I can handle that physicality better than my competitors, I'll be in a better spot at the end of the race. And so when I was up front, my whole thought was just be on the outside of lane 1. So if someone's going to pass me on the curve, they got to go long. Mm-hmm. And then just if anyone pulls up on my side, don't let them get the rail. You know, don't let them get in front of me and get the rail. And so I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting. And I was like, man, like 400 to go and no one's pulling up. 300 to go. I was expecting a stream of guys to blow by me, because that's kind of how it would go in college for me. I mean, I wasn't able to really close that well, and it just never happened. And then down the home stretch, I was like, okay, like I should just run for home, but I needed to keep that gear because I was just expecting Shadrack or Grant or one of these great closers to pull up on me. And yeah, once Grant pulled up on me, I just saw that he kind of...
Yeah, I think he did good. I think he did real good.
I saw he got like maybe, he got just in front of me, but he didn't really open it up. And I was like, wow, I think I could out-lean him at this point. So I just threw in that little extra surge, and I had, you know, I just kept that gear there. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts going into that last, you know, once I took the lead. But it's totally like, I just heard Dathan yell, go to the front, and I didn't even think about it. And I was like, wow, I really don't want to be here right now.
Did you... I've got a question. Did you have a kind of an A plan going into the race? And at what point in the race did you know that the race wasn't going to play out how you had thought it was? And what's kind of going through your mind as you were sort of debating what you need to do to make the team or win the race? And when is that happening? And is sort of anxiety?
Quick.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I would say like going into the race, I was kind of half expecting someone to make it honest. I mean, I figured it was a good weather night. Like, I think to make this team, you need to be a sub 27 caliber athlete. And so I thought, you know, 27, 28, there should be some people that are going to make it honest enough to hit that. But once I realized we went through in 5 minutes, I was like, okay, well, I know we're not going to hit the time, but I don't really go into these races with so much of a plan. I think you got to be good enough that someone else's race plan doesn't change what you're doing. I kind of thought Bowerman might employ some team tactics with having 4 athletes in the race. But again, I just was like, yeah, sure. You know, if say they want to go push the race, fartlek the race, they're going to be, you know, if I can just be there longer and longer, then that's going to stress them out, you know, knowing that, wow, he's still hanging around. So Dathan just kind of says, you know, you got to be good enough that their race plan doesn't matter.
Mind games. It's just like, it's a crazy component.
It really was mind games for like 25 minutes.
So your hands go up to your head as soon as you cross the finish line. I mean, was it just sort of like the shock of like, oh, I can't believe I won that thing, or I can't believe I outkicked Grant, or like, what does the finish line feel?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit like, yeah, I've never beaten Grant in my career.
First national title?
First national title, first time ever beating Grant. I mean, it was just like a lot. I mean, Grant's been like a competitor my whole career, someone I've been chasing my whole career, and someone who's pushed me to new levels. And so to finally beat him was like really not. I mean, not that that was the goal of the day. The goal was to win the race, but to outkick him felt pretty good. Just because he's someone who's I've raced him so many times in my career, and it's always like he just pulls away, and he's so good at closing. But like when I crossed the line, it was a bit of disbelief. I mean, the whole race I was very conscious, very cognitive of what was happening, but the last 100 meters was totally just instincts.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't thinking like, okay, like, pick it up and let's try and win this. It was just like, I felt like I was just in cruise control, and you got to just trust those instincts.
Yeah. So what did you learn from Tokyo, I guess, that is going to be valuable for this upcoming World Championship experience?
Yeah, I learned a lot. I mean, Tokyo, I was pretty disappointed in how I raced. I really did not put myself in the race at all. I kind of just expected, like, okay, I'm not really these guys' caliber, like I'm going to race, I'm going to try and clean some people up when they fall off, which I was able to do a little bit, but I didn't give myself a chance. And so that's why I was happy having the Prefontaine Classic after. I was like, I'm going to put myself up there and I'm going to compete, and that's this year going in. Like, I'm not just going to go to the back. Like, I need to believe. I mean, Grant was 5th a year ago because he went up there and competed. And so I think that just having that mindset that I can race these guys, I think that that's the biggest thing. And that's what I took away from Tokyo was I don't need to be, just write myself off because these guys have 26:40 PRs.
Yeah. Did last night hurt, like, afterwards? It's like, I mean, were you pretty tired? Or because, I mean, you said it was slow for a good chunk of it, that you probably had some left in the tank.
Yeah, honestly, like, it didn't feel like a 10K race. Like, a year ago in Tokyo, I couldn't even cool down just because of the cumulative fatigue of running, the trials and then Tokyo 10K. Last night was actually kind of maybe a bit of a blessing that, we're going to come off this race pretty fresh with the Diamond Leagues coming up. But yeah, no, it didn't feel like a 10K race. It felt like just a workout and then a 800-meter race at the end.
How's sort of goal setting work with OAC or you and Dathan? Is it going to be sort of like, all right, let's take the week to kind of just see how the body feels and then, set goals for World Champs, or have the goals already been set, way out in advance?
Yeah, I think that we'll definitely, our team, it seems like we have these big weekends. Like Millrose was a big weekend. Last year's trials was a big week for our team. And so I think that Dathan really likes to just kind of like soak in these big weeks and like be in the moment. And then we get back to Boulder, have some easy days and kind of like digest it all and figure out, what's the best thing moving forward now. So I think that I'm just going to enjoy the races today, cheer on my teammates. We'll get back to Boulder and then kind of talk about, do you want to try and get into another Diamond League? Do you want to take another trip to Europe? Do you want to go after this, go after that? And then, kind of knowing that Worlds is the main thing. Doing well there is the main thing and everything is secondary. We need to put the pieces together to have the best World Championship we can.
So we've seen the videos that were put together last summer of just the OAC teammates watching their own fellow teammates competing at the Olympic trials. So, like, with USA's coming up, with Sage competing, like, how nervous do you get for her races?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty nerve-wracking. I mean, like I said, the bar on this team is on OAC is making Worlds, which is such a high level to be at. And so, like, I mean, everyone feels that pressure, and certainly Sage in the women's 800, it's so hard to make that team. But now she sees, like, Alicia's making teams, I'm making teams, Jordy, Ollie, everyone. So she's got a lot of pressure, but I think that she'll respond well. She's getting into these Diamond Leagues and getting a lot of great racing experience. But no, it is nerve-wracking watching, just knowing how much the athlete cares about representing their country and how much they want to, like, contribute to the success of this team. And certainly when they fall short, it's just heartbreaking. Like when Leah fell last year, knowing how bad she wanted to contribute to the success of this team and be at the Olympics, and then they fall short of that, and it's hard because you know how much they care and how much they've put into it.
Yeah. Well, Joe, we can't wait to see what you put together at the upcoming World Championships. Maybe we see you back on the track for the 5K, possibly. It's still up in the air, but wishing you all the best of luck in training, and then back here in 2 months.
Yeah, thank you.